Hey everybody, it's Jay Baer, customer service, customer experience, and marketing expert, author, and advisor, and I am pumped to be with Adam Showalter today. Adam is the managing director for National Investor Office Services at Stream Realty Partners. Adam, what is up?
Thanks, Jay, for having me. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, we got a lot to cover today. It is extraordinary, the work that you're doing. I think it'd be useful just to set the stage a little bit for anybody who's not familiar. Tell me a little bit about Stream Realty Partners and what the organization does.
Sure. So Stream Realty Partners, founded in 1996 in Dallas, Texas by two former Trammell Crow principals. We are a full-service commercial real estate firm focused primarily on office, industrial, and data center. In those 26 years, we've been fortunate to grow to 15 other markets in Texas, Southern California, Phoenix, Denver, Atlanta, Nashville, Carolinas, DC, and Chicago and Denver. So excited to be here. I've been with the company about 3 years in Chicago and joined the national office team about a year ago.
I love that you're in almost all the nice weather cities. I think that's very smart. We'll excuse Chicago from the list, but well played. Tell me a little bit about your role, because I think it's a little unusual what you do for the organization compared to how a lot of other real estate organizations handle it.
Yeah, so, as we've grown over the 26 years, we started to see opportunities to create centralized roles. We were an incredibly decentralized company running very local, market specific by our local leaders. And as we grew and there created opportunities and synergies across markets, we started to create centralized business units. So I was fortunate to join the National Office Business Unit, which basically oversees everything third-party service related in the office sense. So leasing, management, project management, construction management, facilities management, those types of things. I come from the office world, so I've got about almost 17 years of experience in kind of all things office. And so it made a lot of sense for me. It's been a very rewarding ride. I've been in Chicago my entire life and learned a lot about office here, but it's been really fun, as you said, to go to some more markets and see what's going on there. A lot of the same things and a lot of different things.
And now you've got the big focus on customer experience, and that's a large part of your role as well, is trying to differentiate Stream Realty Partners with CX. So as you said, you've been doing this for almost 20 years now. You're so youthful looking. I don't know what your secret is, Adam. I feel like you started in this business when you were like 5. Well played. How do you feel about this focus on customer experience? Do you think it's kind of overdue in the industry, something that a lot of commercial real estate organizations have kind of slept on, or is it just sort of a natural progression that you've got to differentiate on something and experience is what it should be?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I think a couple of things. I think one, customer demands have changed, right? I think that this is something in a post-COVID world that's been accelerated, but quite honestly, we kind of saw some of these things happening before COVID. People's expectations as it relates to office space was changing before March of 2020, and a lot of those trends that we saw as it relates to what people wanted to do when they were in the office, where their offices wanted to be, what they wanted to get back from their office spaces was starting before that and only accelerated more recently. I also think, from a business standpoint, our business and many others, as you know, start to become commoditized, and true differentiation and product sales starts to become commoditized, and it's really hard to compete, obviously, in a commoditized business unless you're the cheapest or the biggest, and we're typically neither, given some of the big publicly traded companies in our space. So when we really started to look at the customer demand trends and the customer journey through our buildings, we started to recognize opportunities to elevate that experience and elevate that service offering, which ultimately, starts to decommoditize those service offerings we're really proud of.
Yeah, it's a playbook that's common in many industries, right? You have sort of the baseline experience, and then typically, eventually, somebody says, all right, we're going to try and win by the low price. Think about airlines, right? You've got several airlines that are trying to compete on price, and you sort of know when you buy a ticket, like this might be a little rough from an experience standpoint. but man, I'm saving money, right? And then you sort of have the middle, and then you have some airlines on the opposite side who say, yeah, we're probably going to be the least value driven, but we're going to try and give you a demonstrably better experience. And I find it fascinating. The same thing is happening in your industry. I also think it's got to be really challenging for you because sort of ipso facto, the nature of your business, you've got a ton of different tenants, different markets, and there's expectation differences, I'm sure, a little bit market to market. You've got different investors, you've got different people, of course, visiting your properties every day to go to work. What are the challenges of that from a customer experience perspective? Like all of these different sort of experiential mouths to feed.
Yeah. Listen, I wish I could say one size shoe fits all, but the reality is it doesn't. And for a lot of the reasons you mentioned, market, sub-market within said market, physical constraints, tenant mix, industry mix, right? Like tech tenants have different needs than a law firm, and law firms have different needs than a consulting firm. So we looked at all of those things across our markets, the 15, and started to recognize similarities, right? There are certain things that most tenants want, if not all tenants want, and then started to really customize those types of offerings specific to physical assets, as you mentioned, capital constraints within the ownership of said asset. And then ultimately, what I think is most important to us and evident by our legendary CX internal training platform is that specific to our people, right? And we tried to really customize our service offerings to the people that we had as the boots on the ground that are delivering this on a day in, day out basis. You think about the airline industry because you're on a plane a lot. I think about the hotel industry because we're, in the real estate business. And, I think the hotel industry has done a really good job of this over the last 30 or 40 years in recognizing that different customers need and want different things, and they have the capabilities, as I'm sure you're familiar, given your travels, in having different flags within these organizations, right? Marriott now has 30 flags, I think, which I know about 5 of them, but why they need 30, I don't know, but that's our industry. But when I think about our space and office property management specifically, we have one flag, and that flag's the same if it's a single story office building and maybe a suburban location as a 80-story building in downtown Chicago. And so I started to recognize opportunities, and obviously the hospitality world, a lot of synergies there, and starting to say, well, what if the service offering had varying levels and certain types of service offering?
You mentioned sort of the employee side of this, which could not be more important. As a customer experience researcher and advisor, it's been proven true in the CX world in many different circumstances across several different industries and dimensions that employee experience essentially precedes customer experience. Like it's really, really hard to be great at CX unless your people internally also have a really good experience. I presume you found that to be true. And talk a little bit about this legendary CX training program. I think it's really fascinating.
Yeah, we have found it to be exactly true. And I think it's something hopefully most businesses recognize early on, but I think it's the businesses that really excel, that invest in their internal culture and their people and the training and the resources that they provide them. One of the biggest things that we took out of Legendary CX, which I'll explain in a minute, is we're doing this for customer service and experience, but this is as important, if not more important, in the way we treat each other. And I think that was the most vital part of the 2-day training we went through and the 2-day training we're rolling out across our entire company, is that we say the right things, we respond to the right things, we act a certain way at a higher level to our customers, but also to ourselves. And that was really, really powerful. And it's something I'm really proud of that, we're rolling out across our company. Legendary CX was a proprietary training program geared at customer experience, aka the CX and Legendary CX, to elevate our property management service offering across all property types, across all assignments in all cities in our company. And so we rolled it out to nearly 500 people internally. We engaged a high-end hotel learning center. I don't think I hear the name of that hotel, but I'm sure some of the listeners can guess. They built the training program with us. It was about a year-long process with focus group, multiple internal discovery periods, and took a really, really long time purposely to understand our business, to understand our people and our customers. I was fortunate enough to be part of those focus groups, one of the drivers behind rolling this out. And it's been an incredible experience. Our people have really, really appreciated it. They walked away from these training programs excited and passionate about this new tool that they've been given. And I think that we as a company, through our people, really see an opportunity to elevate the service that is good now, but we want it to be great and above and beyond and legendary and unforgettable.
Adam, one of the things we talked about is the driver for some of this initiative overall is differentiation. That Stream Realty Partners is big, but not the biggest, and you run a great organization, but you're not the least expensive. And so if you can say, hey, you should come to us for a demonstrably better experience, you should do that. So how does that work in practice? So we've got Legendary CX, et cetera. How does it make Stream different? And do you have examples of sort of what that looks like on the ground?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that we're fortunate as a full service commercial real estate firm is that we are our own client a lot of times. We own office buildings, we develop office buildings, we've bought and sold office buildings. And so we have some firsthand experience with our own assets and what not only our property management service offering is, but also our leasing offering and our project management offering and all the services that we provide within the office and industrial space. And so when we started to look at our own assets, we started to recognize some of those opportunities. And then I think, like any good service company, we went and asked our customers, what they wanted, what worked, what didn't work. And then I think a step further, which, we're really proud of is we went to ask the tenants, right? We typically are in a landlord position outside of our 15 regional offices. We're not the tenant very often. And so, we wanted to understand for the tenant. So through surveys and customer interaction, we started to ask real estate decision makers. We started to ask office managers kind of what was working, what wasn't working. As you know, Jay, we talked about, office is really kind of at this inflection point in the market, right? We were all work from home for, depending on the company, months and/or years over the last almost 3 years. People have slowly started to come into offices, some more so in certain markets and certain industries and less so in others. But, as we looked at the landscape from a granular level to a macro level, we started to identify an opportunity not just to differentiate our business, but I think also to contribute to society, which was just like people need and want something different with office. That has holistically changed, as we know, in my opinion, as we know it for the foreseeable future, if not forever. And so, that obviously affected our robust office business. And so we wanted to really try to understand what was going on, why it was going on, and why. And what we realized is that tenants wanted something different with office space. They wanted it to maybe look different. They wanted it to feel different. They, in some circumstances, wanted to be located differently than where they were previously. And, a lot of those things cost a lot of money, right? And especially if you want to move your building, which basically financially impossible, if not physically impossible. But I think one of the things that we really started to recognize is that through our people, we could start to deliver some of those things without spending a significant amount of capital on behalf of ourselves and the assets we own, or on behalf of our clients, the assets they own. So Legendary CX was kind of the tip of the spear for us there in getting our people trained and getting our people to think a little bit differently and act a little bit differently. As we said earlier, interactions internally, but also interactions externally. And then as we look to the future and what I think is really, really exciting and something I'm personally really passionate about is that could we take it a step further and start to create, higher levels of property management service offering with additional staffing, with additional scopes of services, and with additional, obviously, intent on creating a different experience at an office building. In my opinion, doesn't really exist.
When you think about the beneficiaries of that kind of higher level customer experience, is it across the whole spectrum of your relationships? The investors benefit, the tenants benefit, the end user employees of the tenants benefit, or is there somebody in that equation who sort of benefits most?
Yeah, that's a great question. Hopefully everyone benefits, obviously, right? But I feel that, our mission in this higher level of property management is to change the way people experience the office. And when we say people, we mean the landlord, we mean the tenant, we mean the property managers that are there. We mean the security guards, the janitors, the brokers, everyone, right? And that was intentional, the way that we wrote our mission, our vision, which was, I truly believe that anyone loosely associated with an office building wants to experience it differently. Like I innately believe that. And so when we look at our duty in that as an owner, as a broker, as a property manager, we have a big opportunity and say in that equation. And so as it relates to property management, which is really the day-to-day operations, 5 days a week, sometimes 6 or 7 days a week, depending on your job at the building, that really to me is the kind of the first leg of the stool. And then also bringing in our other partners through that, right? And investing capital and coordinating tours for new tenants in the building, all the way through to the eventual occupancy of the building.
This idea of kind of X2, this differentiated higher level customer experience, is the program there that there will be a particular property or building that includes X2, right? So it's sort of like this one has frosting on the cake. Is that kind of the idea, or is it at some point all Stream properties have X2 customer experience, and that's just the way it goes, like a certain high end hotel property that we...
Yeah, I would think more on the latter. The honest answer is we're not sure yet. X2 is in its infancy, and so we are case studying this right now on a handful of assets, and the intent being that we're going to learn a lot of things that work and learn a lot of things that don't work. We believe that there is a massive opportunity to roll this out on a wide scale at multiple asset levels, at multiple locations, multiple cities that quite honestly we're currently in, and some that we're not currently in. But I would say underlying, again, not to wait too much on the hospitality industry, but maybe like Marriott, is that, base level training, base level kind of scope of services, and then almost an a la carte menu for X2 or X3, X1, whatever we decide to go with. And that, it's really a partnership between our client, typically the landlord, and or developer, and then ultimately the customer, which in our case is the tenant, and determining what is the best service offering and delivery to achieve the goals of the asset.
This is probably a dumb question just because I don't work in commercial too often. Is the level of service that's endemic in X2 and this new program, is that necessarily at the property level? Or could you have a particular tenant inside any given building that is sort of signed on for this sort of bespoke, highly touch-driven experience, and other people aren't?
Yeah, not a dumb question. Actually, a great question, and I think it's an interesting one, Jay, because I've thought about it, and I think down the road there's an opportunity to do that. I would relate it almost to the co-working space, right? Where if you're familiar with WeWork, which most people are nowadays, but also others like Industrious and Regus, that's a brand, right? And so when you sign up with one of those brands, you have access to not only the physical space where you signed up, whether that's in Chicago, New York, LA, Dallas, wherever that is, but depending on the subscription you get, you can have access to all of their other locations. It almost becomes like a network of workspaces throughout the world.
Sure.
I guess in most of those circumstances. I think there is an opportunity for us to create a similar type of system and network, whether that is, an agreement internally with us that we have in our management agreements where you can utilize facilities that maybe aren't the same ownership structure, maybe they aren't the same location in a city, but also the fact that in the world that we live in, as evident by your lifestyle, people are moving around a lot more than they used to, right? And they're not expected to go into the same office 5 days a week anymore. They may be expected to go there 1 or 2 or 3 days a week, but then, a lot of traveling going on personally and professionally. And so I think having access to a network of workspaces somewhat similar to co-working, but on an individual basis or share basis, I think is an interesting opportunity as we try to meet, again, I can't stress it enough, meet the demands of the customers, which is the tenant, right? And so if we're trying to meet all demands of the customers and they're saying, I've got consultants flying around and I need them somewhere in Dallas, LA, and New York, I think, we should do our best to try to deliver that.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. This notion that you are clearly trying to differentiate the organization, but also reacting to the changing needs of your customers, right? You're not trying to dictate the new world of office work to your clients, right? You're saying, hey, if you need to do this differently, we want to not only do it differently, but also do it better. And I think that's really commendable because, the answer can't be, well, this is the way it's always been done, so let's keep doing it that way. I just don't think that's going to work forever. So Stream Realty Partners sort of getting ahead of that sort of change parabola, I think is really, really smart and frankly, pretty courageous. To that end, this ain't free, right? So, you're putting your time in, your team's time in, any customer experience advantage typically does require some sort of capital investment on the part of the organization looking to level up. Now, you hope it's an investment, right? You hope it's not an expense, that it's actually an investment that you've got a return disproportionate to the investment in enhanced customer experience. How do you measure that? Is it tenant retention? Is it new tenant inflow in your business? Like if somebody says, all right, Adam, awesome. We've been working this customer experience thing for a year. How's it going? Like what's the kind of scoreboard for that?
Yeah. The answer is all the above. We really believe that all of the measurables will result positively if we elevate the service offering. And so, the simple ones being physical occupancy, which follow Castle Security Systems, kind of a big measurable in the real estate world right now. We believe if you elevate the service offering, if you elevate some scope of services, that people will come to the office more often than if you do not. We also believe, and what we recognized early on was that there's kind of a trend going on called flight to quality in our space. The tenants that are making investments into office space are typically doing it in newer, nicer office buildings around the country. This isn't just specific to Texas or Chicago or LA. This is a market that we're in, ones that we're not. But, unfortunately for the office market, that's only 5 to 10% of the entire office inventory. And so that starts to question a supply problem and lower demand problem. Showing my Bloomington roots to your hometown, my Econ 101.
Yeah,
supply and demand need to equilibrium to have a functioning system. And so, as we started to look at the macro trends as it relates to office supply and demand, we started to recognize opportunities that were buildings that maybe had some physical constraints, buildings that had some financial constraints that couldn't elevate the quality of the building through just physical investments, right? Whether that was redoing the entire exterior of the building, blowing up the first floor and putting in a bunch of amenities, blowing up the top floor and putting in a bunch of amenities, et cetera, et cetera. And was there an opportunity to improve the quality of the building through customer experience? And we truly believe that there is a lot of assets across the country that can compete with the newer, nicer building within said submarkets by some small upfront investments, especially in comparison to some of the physical investments that some of these landmarks are now, to be competitive in a marketplace that obviously has a lot of supply and lower demand than we had 3 years ago.
Yeah, I love that idea, right? You can redefine what quality means by saying, hey, it's a quality experience, even if it's not the best physical building on the street or in the submarket, but you can add an experiential layer that sort of gets it at par. Is that true also, the flight to quality and sort of the emphasis or coming emphasis on CX? Is that also true in industrial, or do you feel like it's mostly an office scenario?
Yeah, it is true in industrial. Now, it's been somewhat masked by just the insatiable demand that has taken over industrial over the last 3 years.
They'll take any building, any place.
Yeah, right. I mean, you're talking about like low single-digit vacancies across all asset classes in industrial. Obviously, given some of the capital markets debt issues that are going on in the world, that may change a little bit going forward. But yeah, I would say generally speaking, we've experienced it in all of our asset classes: office, industrial, and data center. And typically during recessionary times, I've been doing this a little while now. I've lived through one other recession, if we're in one or going into one here. Flight to quality typically plays out in every single recession. So, we as a company try to be proactive and innovative in addressing some macro trend. Oh, I said the other thing, Jay, I wanted to say, because we've beaten the metaphors on airlines and hotels to death. But I think that, I think about another good metaphor in all of our daily lives. Your favorite restaurant isn't typically the Michelin star or the Zagat Reader Choice Awards. It's typically the restaurant that you go to where they know your name, you don't need a reservation, and the food's good enough, or very good but not great, or not the best, right? And I think about that because I've lived in Chicago for 15 years, and there's a restaurant around the corner from us, and it's really good. But it is mine and my wife's and now my kids' favorite restaurant because they know our names. We've never had to make a reservation. They always find a table for us. And I think about my own personal experience with that, in that, what if an office building could replicate my experience at that restaurant, where we know people's names, we've got everything ready to go for them, and really make people feel cared for in a way that, in my experience, 17 years, I've never had that same feeling at that neighborhood restaurant as I do in an office building.
Yeah, I think it's a really astute observation. And it's one of the challenges, I think, with commercial in general, is that the people going to work there every day don't really feel that sense of recognition, of personalization, of intimacy that you might find in other parts of your life, whether it's the dry cleaner or the restaurant or your kid's school or your church or wherever else you spend time in a physical environment. In many cases, those environments are set up to recognize you and make you feel special in a way that your workplace, where you probably spend the second most time, isn't set up that way, at least not historically. So this idea of trying to bridge that gap, and they've talked for many decades now of Starbucks being kind of the third place, right? And you've got your home and your office and your Starbucks. Well, why can't the office be more like a Starbucks, right? And in general, right? But even more so than a Starbucks, why can't your workplace be more like the local coffee shop, right? That they really do know your name. There's a place here in Bloomington. Adam went to Indiana University, and I live right off campus. My son goes to school here now. My daughter is also from Bloomington, and there's a coffee shop here in town where she moved to Paris, and they were literally like devastated. They're like, wait, Annika's not coming back? Like, what are we going to do? We make this very special unicorn drink for her once a day. And it's like that kind of relationship, right? It's like losing a friend. And it's special for both sides. It's special for the business. It's special for the patron. And I love this whole idea of making the office feel more like that, because as you said, if coming to the office is not necessarily the thing that everybody's going to do 5, 6, 7 days a week, just the world has changed, then you darn well better make it an experience that people want to do instead of being ordered to go there by their boss.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, to me, it's just like it was a requirement, obviously almost 3 years ago, and people just kind of accepted it. And some people made it fun and some people enjoyed it, but apparently a lot of others didn't, as we've learned over the last 3 years. But it still seems to be very transactional, right? It's kind of like, all right, this is your office. It's 4 walls and a roof, and here's your electric outlet, and plug your computer in. We got some Wi-Fi, and get your work done, and maybe talk to your colleagues. And I liked your metaphor on the coffee shop. Like, people don't want to do that. They'd rather go to the coffee shop and get their work done, right? And they'd rather stay in their really nice home office that they built over the last 3 years. Or maybe they'd like to go to their fitness center that now has a little juice bar in it, and they can work there after they get a workout in. And so I think about all the changing dynamics of people's daily lives, which has been consistent with the customer demands that we've been tracking locally, which is that the desire of the office has just totally changed. And so it's on us as operators of office space to beat those demands.
Yeah, it's funny when you talk about how things have changed. A friend of mine actually owns several coffee shops here in Indiana, and he said the other day we were having a beer. He's like, I feel like I'm now an uncompensated commercial real estate.
He's right.
People just come in and they get a coffee and they're there for like 6 hours, and he's like, okay, cool, I guess. And it becomes an actual problem at some level.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I guess I didn't think about the downside of that. I thought, he's got people, he's jammed all day. I guess most of them are spending
jammed all day, but
using his electricity.
They don't drink enough coffee. This is going to get a little nerdy, just from a customer experience standpoint. But one of the things that can be hard in customer experience programs is kind of figuring out the rate of change and sort of the syncopation of add this, measure it, add this other thing, tweak this thing. How do you think about this? Is this an ongoing initiative where you're ticking and tacking as you sort of see opportunities? Or do you have it set up like, all right, we're going to do these things in Q2, and then we're going to do these things in Q3? You know what I mean? Is it sort of like, is it like checkpoints, or like, hey, let's just go with the flow?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we need to be agile and flexible in quite honestly everything in our business, what we do, whether it's property management or brokerage or ownership development. Obviously, you can't be totally pivoting every 30 days or have to bit faster than that. But, as we look at the changing customer demands that we witnessed over the last 3 years, and I think we expect to see over the next, year to 2 years, we expect a lot of change to continue, right? And maybe as you've experienced in your work, there's a lot of office occupiers out there that still don't really know what their office space needs are. Whether that's because they brought everyone back and then something's changed and they changed it up, or they haven't brought a bunch of people back and they're planning to, but then they need to be flexible and pivot as it comes. And so I expect a lot of change to continue within the office utilization space over the next 12 to 24 months as occupiers of office space, both large and small, start to really test out some strategies and some ideas as it relates to the function of office space going forward. We, as hopefully a partner in that, right? I always go back to like the word landlord, which doesn't sound like a partner, like lord of the land.
It's a medieval term, but
it's literally a medieval term. And
as lords of the land, we think of ourselves as partners with our customers because we want to be there as a resource to them. We want to be there as a advocate for them or an assistant of them in helping them determine how to best utilize their office space. And, generally speaking, we have control of everything outside of their physical space within the building. Restrooms, hallways, elevators, common areas, outdoor patios, rooftops, all of the different various common areas we call in our business outside of their space. That was very segregated before COVID. It was kind of like, this is your space, take it, good luck, let us know when you want us to turn the electric back on after your contractor. Those two worlds have just, totally blended together, right? Which is these tenants are utilizing common areas a lot more than they used to. They want some say in what's going on in those common areas. And that to us is just an opportunity, right? Is to form deeper relationship with our customer to truly be partners with them in their office space needs and utilizations and hopefully engagement within our space.
You talked earlier about the profound impact that Legendary CX has had on the organization at Stream Realty Partners, and just kind of getting everybody aligned around this notion of employee experience and working together, and the importance of customer experience as a differentiator. How has that worked for you personally? Like, what has been your personal sort of changes since COVID, and now that you're really leaning into this Legendary CX and X2 program? Like, how do you feel as Adam, kind of pre and post?
Yeah, I love that question. Should probably ask my wife that question. We'll not call her right now.
I can best before.
Yeah, I would say, Jay, I think there was a lot of things that we all learned, myself included, in that 2-day training that we did pretty well. Treat people with respect and be nice and be promptly responding to people and dress professionally. But the one thing that affected me personally, and I think the one thing I'm most proud of is that empathy is such a huge part of business. And our trainer said, empathy is your superpower. And that just hit home with me because I am not default setted to be empathetic. And it's something that I recognized before I took that training, and obviously tried to change in my lifestyle, my personal and professional career. But it was just a really loud reminder to myself, and hopefully a lot of people in the rooms, that empathy is a superpower, and being empathetic to our coworkers, being empathetic to our customers, being empathetic to our spouses, our kids, our family, is something that's really, really powerful. I think ultimately what has become really, really important, especially over the last 3 years, given what we've all been through personally and professionally, the changes that have gone on in the world, is that empathy is an incredibly powerful characteristic and an incredibly intimate and vulnerable trait that I should possess more of. And I've worked really hard since that training to continue to be empathetic in my professional and personal endeavor.
Fantastic. Love that. Couldn't agree more. There was a time when it was the default setting, that empathy was the default for everybody. It hasn't been for a while. We're in an era of empathy deficit, and you can change that both personally and professionally, but it has to be purposeful and planned, and it has to be sort of an initiative. So glad to see you going down that path, and obviously Stream as well. This is super exciting, the path that you're on. Anything else that I forgot to ask you about Legendary CX and X2 that we haven't talked about?
No, not that I could think of. We're in the first inning, so we're really, really excited about playing 8 more innings, and maybe we go to extras. But we're really, really proud of it. For our people, most importantly, to be given these resources and this training and this opportunity to grow professionally. And I think we're ultimately excited to make our contribution to a lot of people's lives when they come into the office, maybe when they work home and check into the office, and truly be hopefully a contributing member to society in the new way of work, new way of office.
Oh, I love it. The building you go to doesn't just have to be a building. It can be something that matters more. And that's what Stream Realty Partners is trying to do. Adam, thanks so much. Really appreciate the time. Congratulations on the initiative so far. I want to check back a little bit and see what's up. Can we do that?
Would love to do that. Really appreciate you having me on, and excited to share the updates going forward. Go Hoosiers.
Yes, go Hoosiers. Let's make that happen. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Take care.